That has been very powerful, is having, big law customers who saw like, hey, like, yeah, we don't really have anything that does this. And actually, we would love if it did these other things that we've always wanted in a product. And I know that traditional advice for startup founders is like, don't let your customers lead your roadmap, but it's all about, curating the roadmap is how I think about it. And that's why I still stay very, very involved in talking with customers every day, because it helps me implicitly sort of know, oh yeah, what this firm is suggesting, actually every customer that I've talked to, they also want that. And I know they'll love this.
Today on LawNext, an interview with Jacqueline Schafer, the founder and CEO of Clearbrief, AI-powered software that works within Microsoft Word to help lawyers find the best facts to support their legal writing. This week, the 4-year-old company announced that it had raised an additional funding round of $4 million, bringing its total funding to just under $8 million. Schafer was inspired to start the company based on her own experiences as a litigator and appellate advocate. A pivotal moment for her came in an asylum case she was handling pro bono, when her ability to point the judge to critical evidence saved her client from deportation and possible death. As Schafer told me when I first interviewed her in 2021, quote, "I thought, if you can show the judge the evidence that really tells your client's story, that's how you win." Today we'll learn about Schafer's journey from practicing lawyer to startup founder, hear what exactly the product does to help lawyers in their legal writing, and find out what this latest investment means for the company and its customers. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. We'll get to all of that in just a moment, but first, please take this moment to learn about the sponsors whose generosity supports this podcast. Ditch manual billing and experience a seamless billing solution with Bill for Time, the easiest to use legal practice management software. From standardized invoicing and customizable templates to built-in payment processing, Bill for Time is your trusted partner for streamlining your firm's time tracking and billing processes. Find out more about how Bill for Time can enhance your practice by visiting billfortime.com. That's Bill, the number 4, time.com. One more ask before we get to today's episode. If you enjoy LawNext, please take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. We'd appreciate it. Now on to today's conversation with Jackie Schafer. Jackie Schafer, welcome to LawNext.
Thank you so much for having me, Bob.
Pleasure to talk to you. I want to get back to the beginning and the origins of Clearbrief, but given that you've had some news this week, I thought let's start there and we can kind of work our way backward in this conversation. But you've just announced a new fundraise of $4 million. Why was it that you wanted to do this raise at this point of time, and what does it mean for Clearbrief?
Yeah, so this was sort of an opportunistic chance to build upon the success and the growth that we're seeing. My goal in founding the company has, never been to just continue raising, massive VC capital, but to become profitable, to, deliver value to our customers. But, this was an opportunity to work with investors that I think are fantastic and, are really believe in the mission. So I may sort of do things a little bit differently than some other founders, and that it's really important to me who's on my cap table. It's really important to me that, we have a diverse cap table that believes in women-led companies. So these are all things where when the opportunity arose to take in some additional capital, it just worked out really well. And we're now just sort of in build mode, with continuing to expand especially our sales team. To keep up with the demand.
One of the things you said in announcing this raise was that it's in part fueled by your growth in the AmLaw 200 sector. How has that growth been kind of characterized? Have you been particularly kind of small firm, have been moving up market, or what's been that sort of trajectory for you?
Yeah, so we had, started out working with small firms. They were the ones, back in, 2020 when I launched the company, in 2021 when we released our beta, version of our product, who were willing and excited to work with us and to use AI. So it's been amazing. So we continue to serve that customer base. And what we saw though in 2022 is we started to get a really strong pull from big law. And in order to satisfy them, we had always had, the strictest security requirements really from day one. That was something I knew would be table stakes as a founder. But we needed to further enhance, architecture, security, some of the features that are needed to support, the volumes of documents and sort of the level of collaboration that big law requires. So this was, before the generative AI craze hit in 2023. So we've been really focused on serving those customers and also learning how to deploy the technology and onboard firms of that size. So we've really hit our stride in the last several months, and there hasn't been we haven't done a ton of PR about it really, but I'm so proud, honestly, to see the largest global law firms that are using our product across their litigation departments. We're being used still by, as well by courts, by government agencies, by in-house teams, including Microsoft's legal team. I can at least share that because they have talked about it publicly.
Yeah.
So this is, yeah, it's just a really wonderful moment for us as a company, and it's still for me is all about the product and the features that big law needs and wants. Also tend to provide a lot of benefit to different types of legal organizations too. So it's working out well.
Yeah, I've always been kind of impressed by some of the investors that had been behind your company. I literally first spoke to you back in 2021 at the introduction of Mark Britton, the founder of Avo, who was one of your early seed investors. And that early seed round had, included some pretty prominent people like Brian Garner, the author of Garner's Black's Law Dictionary, the former general counsel of Microsoft, and later came to include Jack Newton, the founder of Clio. Were you always kind of savvy about fundraising, or is this something you've had to learn how to do, and have you gotten better at it?
Fundraising is my least favorite part of this entire process. I won't, regurgitate what you already know, that how difficult it is, especially for women-led companies, to raise capital. It's been a very punishing experience. I think also because when I founded Clearbrief in 2020, it was just around the time when the fall of Atrium, that you know short-lived legal tech company that had raised, insane amounts of capital, and VC pretty much, thought legal tech was the worst investment ever after that. So that's been my, initial experience. And so I knew that in order to attract investors, I needed to come to the table with credibility. I was really a first-time founder. So, but I had a strong legal career, a decade of practice at, Paul Weiss in government and in-house counsel at, very large institutions. So I brought my own credibility too. I'll give myself some credit there. But for sure, leveraging, each investor that you get to get excited about your company, and it really helps to build that momentum. But I've learned a lot in the last few years about how best to work with my investors and advisors in terms of how to use what skills they're strongest at, the connections that they have that are most beneficial to the company. And so for sure that I think I've gotten better at that piece of it. But my number one goal has always been to focus on the company and not on fundraising. So again, I'm probably different maybe than other founders in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any sense? I mean, you mentioned that this current round of investors includes several with a record of supporting women-led founders, and that's been the case all along with your investors. What's been your experience as a woman founder in the legal tech space?
Yeah, I think overall there's this tendency to sort of place women founders in a different space in some ways, where we're just not given the credibility
Well, partly because they were
that
like aliens in the space for a while. There were no women founders. I mean, it's like there was so few women founders in legal tech for a long time. I mean,
yeah,
you probably
no,
remember when
and
Kristen
it's
Sunday
just
used to track that on a regular basis, and the list was, for a long time, very slim.
I think we're starting to see more and
Yeah.
more female founders come into legal tech, which I hope I've had some small part in that by just being relentlessly, vocal and visible, even when people, I felt like were sort of leaving us out of the conversation or because we weren't, focused on just talking about fundraising. And I've always been focused on talking about product, talking about, what customers are saying, what customers want. And that doesn't get as much sort of attention in the legal tech world. Also, from a pretty, like I said, for the
What
last
doesn't
several
get as much
years.
attention? Like, what you mean? The ability to go out there and talk about what you're doing? Is that what you mean?
Oh, no,
Mm.
sorry. Just focusing on product and, user adoption
Yeah, I
and that
see.
sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I
And
see.
that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
kind of tend to post about on LinkedIn and talk about versus talking about fundraising and
Yeah.
talking
Right.
about
Right.
investor strategy, talking
Right.
about, models, AI models. Like these are all things that I think are, obviously valuable and part of the legal tech conversation. So anyway, I've just sort of focused on what I'm most passionate about, and eventually I win people over. Like they, I think once the people who are legal tech enthusiasts start out by getting excited about those kind of seemingly sexy aspects of it, and then over time they're like, actually I really want to understand, like, what is the use case, how are people using it, what's their feedback, how do we get them to adopt it, like those kind of unsexy questions under the surface. That's where I've always, those questions are the things I've always been drawn to. So does that mean we get maybe less attention in the legal tech space? I don't know, but anyway, I have heard from other female founders that I gave them some confidence to pursue their idea and pursue their vision. And also a lot of male founders. I'm constantly getting inbound DMs from founders in general. So, I'm happy about that.
Yeah. It's funny when you kind of talk about sort of the inside baseball aspects of the legal tech world, and then there is the rest of the legal tech world, or the rest of the legal world that just uses tech in their day to day work. And my experience is that people do get it pretty quickly when they see Clearbrief. And I know you saw the post I just put up last week, but where I had spoken to a group of trial lawyers in North Carolina, and in particular, I had this judge come up to me afterward and say, I want that. I love that, but my court won't let me use anything like that, which seemed to me a really strange thing that the court wouldn't allow that. But I've talked about Clearbrief. I've been at places where you talk about Clearbrief, and it seems like when you talk to lawyers who are out there practicing law and creating legal documents, they get it right away and are really excited about it. And I think that's it partly attributable to the fact that this really did come out of your actual experience and out of your real life story. So I said we'd get back to it. I know you've told the story a million times, but why don't you just kind of share how it is that you came to develop this in the first place? What was there was a sort of a pivotal moment, I think, that kind of had the light bulb go off in your head, right?
Absolutely. So, I've been a litigator my whole career. I started out at Paul Weiss, where, of course, there's such an emphasis in that setting on accuracy and perfection and legal writing as a team sport, really, where everything you write is going to be scrutinized by 20 people. I then went to practice, in government, where I was doing appellate work. I was regularly, arguing before the state Supreme Court. It was amazing. I mean, I loved that so much, and it was such a different writing process where this time it's like you have a massive caseload and you have to write everything yourself. You get feedback, which then you have to incorporate at the end, and there's a scramble. So I just had, years and years in the trenches of writing and also caring deeply about writing and seeing. I think it really was that appellate experience that really helped me see that, like, wow, when I got that final opinion from the court, like they really used my ideas in my writing. Like, it came through. And then, I had this really transformative experience. It was like around 2018 where I was representing a woman and her toddler in a pro bono asylum case. And I had written like a 50-page brief or something like that. It was a lot. And we got to this final hearing where if we lost, they were going to be deported and in, extreme danger, and absolutely terrifying to feel like, oh my god, this is resting on my advocacy. And when we got into that hearing, the judge immediately, just by verbal like cues and body language, was signaling that he was super frustrated with my client. She was pregnant. He was just you know, upset. And I felt like we're going to lose. This is horrible. But there was a moment where I pointed him to one of the pieces of evidence that I had kind of gathered, which was a declaration by a therapist. And the judge listened to it, heard it, and reviewed it. And I saw him change his mind. And he believed my client, and we won. And it was for sure a nail biter, because it was like there were different, arguments that we had made, and he was like, this one rejected, this one rejected. It was like the last, possible legal theory, and sort of like a catch-all legal theory. And ultimately it came down to his gut feeling of, whether this woman and this family had been subjected to that extreme trauma. And it was the evidence and his interacting with it that changed his mind. It was not what I said or even what my client said, actually. So I just thought that was such a powerful moment. And it really helped me sort of visualize what I wanted to do with taking the legal writing, taking the evidence, and keeping it visible. I was also at the time like learning more about AI. I wrote a law review article about AI and how I thought it would transform the child welfare space, which I think is so cool, because it was definitely, I think, it foresaw what some of the things that we're seeing today
The use of
in that
data to
article.
transform child welfare or something like that. Was it? I was actually looking for it. I couldn't find it, but is it
Yeah,
out
it
there
was called,
somewhere?
it's
Yeah.
called Harnessing AI for Struggling Families. And it's about how government agencies could be using AI to help with some of these core problems that I saw when I was an assistant attorney general advising government agencies. I sort of saw some of the structural problems. So anyway, I was a big nerd, essentially, is what what this all boils down to. But I will say I knew when I learned more about AI and natural language processing that this was going to transform what lawyers did. And yeah, I think that was, to me, it was an exciting time, because I felt like I had this insight that other people didn't have. And I think a lot of people tend to get dejected after being rejected, or having their ideas sort of sneezed at. And so I think that was a very pivotal moment of just having that conviction, and moving forward to raise capital, to start a company, to build a prototype, to build a team.
I mean, that's a huge
And
leap. I mean, how do you go from, you sort of see the power of evidence, you see that it's important to winning cases, but you're a practicing lawyer. How do you go from that point to founder and CEO? I mean, was there a moment when you just said, "That's it, I'm quitting my day job and working on this"?
yeah, there was. I think one of the biggest factors for me really just had to do, like, it was just something that I'd always felt since I went to law school, where I knew I wanted to, do something that had an impact. I wanted to give back. And at that point I tried a number of different roles in the legal world. And at every role, I sort of felt like limited, like, oh God, I have so many ideas, and people don't always like, people with big ideas in the workplace. It's just, they want you to just stick to what your day job kind of thing, stick to what you're supposed to do. And so I'd always kind of had that feeling. So I think I was just old enough and at a point in my career where I just felt like, if I'm going to do it, I should just do it now. And I see this opportunity. I think a couple other things, which was, living in Seattle, there's a lot of entrepreneurs here, and I was learning, getting more involved in that community. I felt like a fraud. So just, that is for sure something, an emotion probably every founder experiences during this time period, where you go to these events and you're like filling out your name tag. You're like, founder question mark. You're not sure who you are.
Was that how you
But
met Mark Britton? Because he's in Seattle also.
so actually, I met Mark Britton very strategically, where I was, reaching out to different people, and who knew Mark. And eventually, I met certain people, and it was through this person, through that person, they introduced me to Mark. And yeah, when I first, got that meeting with Mark, the first thing he said was, everyone always wants me to invest in legal tech. I don't do it. I'm not going to invest. So just FYI, like, and I was like, okay. Um, and, but when I told him, my ideas and my vision, and I sent him a truly embarrassing pitch deck that was very poorly formatted, he kind of saw beyond it, instantly saw that potential. And so he was like, let's do another call. So over time, I think he really was such a huge influence in how I kind of got to that next step. So I got to give him props to Mark. And I just think there's been mentors like that at different stages of this journey. And Mark continues to be just an amazing sounding board. So I'm
Yeah.
really
Well,
grateful to have him.
We've talked so far in this podcast about why Jackie Schafer founded Clearbrief and her initial journey as a founder. What we haven't talked much about is the product itself. In the second part of the interview, we'll dive into the product and what it does. But before we do that, please take a moment to learn about the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Paradigm is revolutionizing the legal industry by offering a comprehensive suite of innovative technology solutions, combining the power of top-tier legal practice management platforms, including Practice Panther, Meriscase, Law, and Bill for Time. Paradigm provides a complete suite of tools designed to meet the unique needs of law firms of all sizes and specialties. With native online payments and intuitive interfaces, Paradigm makes it easy to streamline your workflow and focus on what matters most, serving your clients. Discover more at joinparadigm.com. Welcome back to LawNext. Just before the break, you heard Clearbrief CEO Jackie Schafer talk about Mark Britton, the original founder of Avo, who was an early investor in and advisor to Clearbrief. I shall have an email Mark sent me in February 2021 introducing me to Jackie, in which he wrote, quote, "What they are doing is incredibly cool, and I believe it will revolutionize legal writing and advocacy." So what exactly is it they are doing? Up until now in this interview, we haven't delved into that. So as we turn to the conversation, I asked Jackie to describe just what it is that Clearbrief does. Let's get back to that.
Yeah, so Clearbrief is a Microsoft Word add-in that helps lawyers and anyone doing legal writing find and then keep the evidence visible while they're writing in Word. We do use now generative AI to generate timelines that have hyperlinks where you can see all that evidence in Word while you're reviewing it and editing it. And it's really designed as this end-to-end platform, though. So you might start off with a chronology, but then you're turning that into a facts section. Then you're turning that into a brief that needs to be site checked or a motion. And then you need to create exhibits and you need to do your table of authorities. And then you want to send a hyperlinked version to file with the court. Clearbrief stays with you through that entire process and also site checking the legal sites to prevent if you've used generative AI on your legal research. We don't do the legal research portion. We're focused on the fact research, but we do check over that final product in Word. So that's the one thing that we've really continued to hear from our customers is like, wow, this is a really complete platform. And that's what I'm saying. Like it takes years in the game, years in the trenches with customers, listening to them to think of all there's just so many kind of minute and tedious problems that are involved in getting from idea to filed motion.
But it's all about
So
verifying and connecting those facts. I mean, you've got somebody's working in Word, you've got the Word document, brief or whatever you're working on in the left-hand side of your screen, you've got Clearbrief on the right-hand side of your screen, and you've uploaded documents, transcripts, exhibits, whatever else it might be, and you're able to find the facts in all of that support what it is you're writing, or to verify that in fact you've properly cited to the correct facts, right?
exactly.
Good, because that's what I said last week when I talked about it.
You got it right. So it really is solving one of the biggest issues, honestly, with work settings where you're having to collaborate on writing, where the associate does something, they send a document to the partner, their supervisor, the client, a colleague, co-counsel, and that person is reading like essentially a flat piece of paper if they don't have Clearbrief. So they worry, like, okay, you're telling me this is what the evidence said. You're telling me this is what the case said. If I want to investigate that, I have to go look it up. And truly, we're all so busy. Unless you make it super easy for people to see and check things, that can fall by the wayside. So this is what we hear all the time from like the partners and Big Law and everywhere, that they love that they can easily check their associate's draft and they don't worry, I'm signing my name to this. Did this person secretly use Chat GPT and I'm going to be on the front page now for hallucinating everything in my brief? Like they don't have to worry. They see it in Clearbrief. So we also have several features that are very like patented, very unique to our tool that, are very popular, like the add fact site button. So this is something that like I thought of basically when I was, a big law associate, where as an associate, you might send a draft to the partner and they add a bunch of stuff in there. And they put add fact site, and they send it back to you. And you're like, where did you get this? I don't know if this is true. And there's 50,000, pieces of evidence. Well, you can easily import and dump all that evidence into Clearbrief. We integrate with Relativity, iManage, NetDocs, Clio, MyCase, and now I can search through and I can select that sentence, and the AI will suggest this page could prove that, this page could prove that, and I can just insert a hyperlinked citation. So I hope that was like an oral description of, of a
Yeah, yeah.
software.
Well, no, it is. It does help to see it actually. And anybody listening to this, I think you can hop onto YouTube or onto the Clearbrief site and see. Well, actually, I know on your site you've got a bunch of demos up there that show it all visually, and it's very helpful to see. But it is the kind of thing where, like I said, this I demoed a bunch of products last week, and the one that stuck in this judge's mind was Clearbrief, and she wasn't the only one who mentioned it to me afterward at this conference. So um,
Hey, well, put me in touch with them. I'll help them get it.
well, I think part of the problem sometimes with a lot of, especially in this age of generative AI, a lot of the stuff that's coming out is people have difficulty, I think, sometimes seeing how it fits within their law practice, within their workflow, and this is just so obvious, and it's also unique. I mean, I was trying to think of who your competitors are, and I mean, there are certainly other products out there that kind of help with brief formatting and citing and cleaning up and editing text and that sort of thing. But you don't really have a direct competitor in terms of what you do you?
We don't, and that's what we hear all the time from customers, which is we looked at all these other generative AI tools. We decided to go with Clearbrief after, our users said this one really was useful. Because, and also like this is literally giving us the full spectrum of what we're doing with a document. Like there's so many tools now that can just like generate something for you, but they haven't thought through, okay, well, how am I getting the evidence in? How am I, what's the architecture to ensure security? What about, all this extraneous data that's, in the margin or whatever, like
Right.
of the
Yeah.
document? What about when I want to share it with these people? Or that, like, there's just so many little things that, are needed. So I would just say like that has been, I think, very powerful is having, big law customers who saw like, hey, like, yeah, we don't really have anything that does this. And actually, we would love if it did these other things that we've always wanted in a product. And I know the traditional advice for startup founders is like, don't let your customers lead your roadmap, but it's all about, curating the roadmap is how I think about it. And that's why I still stay very, very involved in talking with customers every day, because it helps me implicitly sort of know, oh yeah, what this firm is suggesting, actually every customer that I've talked to, they also want that. And I know they'll love this. So it helps me figure out how we can continue to offer that unique value. It's really just about like listening. So
Yeah, keep doing
maybe
that.
that's
Keep
my
doing
advantage
that.
as
That's
a female
important for the CEO to keep talking to the customers. I think some of these founders get too big for their britches. But so you officially launched it back in March of 2021. How has the product evolved since then?
Yeah. So we had, initially really just focused on, displaying citations to the law, displaying citations to the facts when you analyze a document. And there's just so many iterations, for example, of how people might cite to different things. And we have 4 issued patents. That cover sort of that journey we went on to figure out how do you build a tool that's very flexible at detecting. They meant this to be a reference to the deposition, but they just spelled everything wrong and it's a weird citation. It doesn't look like a citation. So we've put a lot of development time into citations. Again, not a sexy area in 2021. I think it's gotten more exciting to people. Now we're in the age of we really can't trust anything anymore. We've got to see, we've got to verify. You better show us where you got this. So making that a reality we've put a lot of focus on that. Then we added more around expanding our integration so that we could seamlessly bring in the factual documents. In 2023, we launched our generative AI tools. That has been huge. Those are some of our most popular
Which
features.
are the timeline and the chronology, and is that are
And
those?
yeah, and then we now you can turn your timeline or your search results into a narrative with citations, into a demand letter with citations, into a investigation report. So our product is different than a lot of AI tools where it's not choose your own adventure. It's not like do anything you want with Clearbrief. It's really not. It's like we know that you want to do these specific things. And so we've put a lot of work into making sure that will go smoothly for you. So I think that it's also sort of like a product choice there, which I think it is really exciting, to when you use generative AI to feel like, wow, I can ask it anything. I can. But when I think about my own experiences using very open-ended, prompting generative AI tools, I don't end up using the output very
Mm,
frequently. It's fun to do, but it's not. So that's where I think, we really have staying power compared to maybe some other generative AI tools that are saying, look at people are using it. People are using it. Well, they're typing stuff in the search bar or in the prompting bar, but are they actually filing that with the court?
right,
Are they actually sharing that with the client?
right.
So once, you sort of get into the details of talking with customers. Another really cool thing is that from very early on, customers have been have been using Clearbrief on real work. So versus just saying, oh, we can only use publicly available, documents, they're using it on real assignments and they're filing it the hyperlinked versions with the court. So yeah, we're battle tested in
Yeah,
that way.
yeah. And worth noting, I forget whether you mentioned this earlier, is that you can use it not only to check your own work, but to check your opponent's work. If you get a brief in from an opponent full of citations to the record or whatever else, you can check the accuracy of those. Right?
Exactly. And there's nothing more fun than, using that add fact site. You're like, okay, you put a bunch of stuff, but you didn't put any citations. I'm going to find like what else is in the record that contradicts what you wrote. So that's always really a fun way to use AI.
Yeah. So, given the product evolution to date, and some of the features that you've added in, some of your listening to your clients in terms of what they're looking for, um, how does it continue to evolve, or have you at a kind of a stable product at this point? I mean, what are your plans in thinking about the product going forward from here?
Oh yeah, we are definitely evolving. There's new features that we're releasing pretty much every month, that are enhancements that are directly the result of our conversations with customers. I don't want to say too much because I do feel like that's kind of our competitive advantage
Yeah.
right now is that we have a lot of customers and we listen to them. So, and I'm starting to notice, like, I think when I see new startups popping up every day, I'm like, oh, there's our website copy. There's my newsletter, copy. And so it has made me a little more guarded. I think that's kind of an interesting, we're, like I said, we've done what we've achieved on far less capital than most of our
Mm-hmm.
competitors. And I think it's really because we've listened to our customers and we have moved quickly to implement new features, and we're always innovating. And that extends to innovating in how we train people, the security, architecture options that we offer. We're really, we're not just standing by and um, standing by the
Yeah.
sidelines.
Well, I mean, clearly, there are the investors that you announced this week, and your prior investors see opportunities here for growth. Where are those opportunities for growth? Are they primarily in expanding your market? Are they also in adding new types of products to what you're already doing? Where do you see that happening?
Yeah, it's really just about sort of doubling down on what we've been doing, and we're just seeing really rapid adoption. I think there was just sort of a turning point with Big Law where they realized like, oh wow, everyone is using it, like we need to use it too. And also, getting it in the hands of their users, you're like, oh, this has been much more thought through than than other things we've tried to give litigators. So this is the time to double down on, growing our sales team. We recently hired an awesome VP of sales, Corey Wise. And we just are continuing to, expand that. We still, yeah, we still need to hire sort of like a head of marketing. A lot of our marketing has been organic. We haven't done paid ads. It's really been organic, word of mouth and podcasts like these
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
do you
interviews.
have? I was actually wondering this. Do you have marketing and PR people, or are you kind of the marketing person?
I've been the marketing person. We do have, some folks helping me now, which is amazing. But yeah, I still, I have a very high bar for content. Like I said, I try to use ChatGPT, but I have my own voice that I think our customers really relate to. So yeah, no, I do something. For example, like I send an update email to our customer base, exploring the new features, showing them how I'm using it and how they can use it. That's still, it's not written by anyone else, it's written by me. And I think that's what, there's people like that, they really respond to that, and I get, so many wonderful messages saying like, oh my god, this just saved me today when I owe my brief, thanks for making this video. And
Yeah, yeah,
so I love it.
yeah. And well, you're kind of a shy person anyway, right? You're not very comfortable
Oh
on
yeah.
stage or. No, you were
No,
a jazz vocalist as well, and I mean, I sorry that I talk about this every time I see you, but still one of the most memorable times for me of seeing you was during Startup Alley in 2022 when you were one of the companies pitching there, and you got up and sang your pitch, and it was fantastic, and it captivated everybody in the room, and that was the first and last time anybody sang their pitch at Startup Alley that I can remember.
well, I do think it's important to really, stand out when you do pitch competitions. And just in general, people want to feel like they trust and know their legal technology companies. I think that is an important part of our brand that we've built, is being interested in my journey, and like, who is this crazy woman
No,
that's singing
I think the
about,
fact that you have
legal?
a genuine story of what the problem was that you encountered, how you saw this as being one that other lawyers had, and then turning that into a product. And again, I think that's why people relate to it. It's clearly something that is a common problem, and this is the only solution to it out there that really does it in the way that you do it. So that's a good thing. I was just totally unrelatedly. Somebody was asking me just this earlier this week, as somebody in a startup, about should I hire a PR firm? Should I hire a marketing firm? I'm like, I don't really know that you should. I debate that a lot, but I think probably a lot of it is how comfortable you are with that sort of thing as a startup founder. But founders who are one-on-one with people and genuine and passionate about their product do a lot more to convey that message than any PR person is ever going to do, I think.
Well, honestly, I think it also comes with being involved in interacting with customers, because I've gotten so much more comfortable, talking about the product and than I was just from, I'm every day, all day
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So it will naturally, I think, make you better at PR by just
yeah,
talking with customers. So.
yeah. Back when I first talked to you in 2021, I actually also still have the notes from that conversation. And I was looking back at those. And one of the things you said to me at the time was you had to learn pretty quickly how to lead a tech company. That was 3 years ago. What more have you learned about how to lead a tech company, or what kind of advice would you give to others who were maybe where you were 3 years ago?
Oh my gosh, that is a really hard question. I feel like the learnings are just coming constantly every day. And I mean, I basically, so much has been having, a mentor of my CTO, Jose Sauda, who, he leads our technology team, and he was at Microsoft for 20 plus years, leading AI teams, building AI products. And so he just, yeah, has such a great way of really, respecting what I bring to the product conversations and my ideas that I have from reading all the time about different models, different ways, different ideas and strategies we could incorporate. And also being realistic with me about what's, what we should focus on, and the bandwidth of the team and that sort of thing. So I think that's probably the number one thing, is just having a partner, technology partner, who you can really rely on and trust to, you know, help you grow and develop, because you have to get more technical. And so that's something that it's just a muscle that I'm always growing is, and maybe it's similar to what we do as lawyers too. When we get a client and they're sort of a new area of law, we're like, well, what does that acronym mean? And you're just constantly having to up your game and educate yourself so that you can communicate with the engineering team. I'm also really excited about, I think, let's see, what else have I learned? I think that trusting my own sort of taste, because it's not just product taste and product sense that's been developed at random. It's because I am, like I said, I'm in customer calls, trainings, onboardings, one-on-one conversations with partners, one-on-one conversations with law firm GCs, in-house counsel. I'm just like in all these conversations, and it's feeding my algorithm of my brain. So I just think, again, like, I know I've already said this, but like, yeah, just being, a part of those conversations. Never get too busy to be a part of those conversations, because that's what hones your product sense of where the roadmap should be going. And so much of it is just like a gut feeling. And then one last thing, which is, I think, don't discount your artistic sensibility in leading a tech company, because tech is, yes, it's very numbers based and math based, but the success of products really often come down to, like, did we delight somebody? Did we make it feel easy for them? Did we, sort of show them a new way of doing things? And so recently I'm super excited, hired a fantastic, she's an experienced designer basically, and user, head of user experience, to help me continue to ensure that using the product feels really intuitive, feels like a delight. And yeah, I think it's just, you should, like, one of the things that I really appreciated about her name is also Jackie, shout out to other Jackies, is her artistic, sensibility, and, that this is really an art. It's not always a science, like leading a tech company. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure you want Clearbrief to make lots of money, and I'm sure your investors want Clearbrief to make lots of money. But are there other kind of metrics for success that you look at as you kind of look ahead to the future of this company?
Yeah, I mean, I want to leave the legal profession a healthier place. That's really what I'm going for. I think that a lot of the dysfunction that we see in legal workplaces, and the stress and the sadness that a lot of lawyers feel, is because they're sort of alone in dealing with and solving very tedious, complicated problems. Yes, I know everybody says I want them to focus less on the drudgery and more on the high level lawyering. um, it's really, though, if we can help them understand that from the beginning of working on something, you can set this up for success. So you won't be crying in a bathroom stall at midnight, before the brief is due. It will set them up to interact better with their colleagues. It will set them up to communicate better with the judge. It will set them up to win. And ultimately, I think, set everybody in that case up, because litigation is about this adversarial system where, in my personal experience, really the only thing that sort of shortcuts the adversarial nature of it is the facts. And if you're ever in an argument, the one thing that that sort of shuts down the argument is, you're like, well, let's both look at this email together. Let's both look at this document, and let's get on the same page about what we're arguing about. Let's get on the same page about what's reasonable. And yeah, we disagree, but if we can all at least make it easy for us to look at the evidence, I think we can resolve things, in a better way that's healthier for the legal profession and has better outcomes for clients.
If only that were true in other aspects of our lives, it would be great. Unfortunately, facts seem to not carry the weight they once did.
We need an add fact site button for social
We
media is
do.
what I
I like that. The clear brief for social media. Well, before we wrap up, was there anything else that you wanted to say about Clearbrief, or about the latest news, or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm just excited. I think that I wish I could say more about, how our customers are using it. We just are really, we have such exciting stories that we hear every day. We can't talk about it, because our customers don't want,
Yeah.
everybody knowing their business, which I get. But it brings me, so much pride on behalf of my team to see, what lawyers and legal staff and in-house counsel, what they're achieving, judges, clerks with our tool, and hearing their user stories, I think is what should give everybody a lot of confidence that AI and legal tech are really having a positive impact on our profession, and it's not just hype. There is a reality to it, and hopefully we'll start to hear more of those user stories publicly.
All right, my last off-topic aside is to say I was in researching this, I came across your Swing 49 Bandcamp page. Was that your group? I assume that's
Yeah.
not a thing anymore, or is that's not your when you were
We
in the
still
last?
sometimes I just yeah, we did a performance like I think was it last month or do a performance every couple months, and yeah, that's what our album. Maybe that was one of the things that helped me get my head around subconsciously around the idea of starting my own company was, recording an album is also something that nobody asks you to do that. It's like you have to put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. There's a couple of my original songs on there. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I did. I was listening to it this morning. Gypsy
Oh,
Jazz from
awesome.
Jackie Schafer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, one of my favorite songs in there is "Hey Muse." Gotta check out that one. It's about can you be inspired by something other than heartbreak? So it's
I'll
one of my
check it
favorite
out.
ones.
Well, Jackie, thanks so much. I really appreciate your coming on the show, and it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Always good to see you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your interviewing me.
A sincere thanks to Jackie Schafer for joining me today to talk about Clearbrief, and congratulations to her and everyone there on the recent fundraise. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments on today's show, please do so by messaging us on LinkedIn or X, or by emailing me directly, mbrogi@gmail.com. If you're a fan of LawNext, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. LawNext is a production of LawNext Media. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of Law Next.